Well, good evening, Council, members of the public. We'll begin this evening with a public hearing, so I will now call that to order, being the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. First up on the agenda, 2.1, adoption of the agenda for this evening's public hearing, moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Should be no additions. All in favor? It's carried. I do have a public hearing statement to read aloud under 3.1 around conduct in a public hearing. This public hearing, dated March 14th, being held in the Village of Valemount Council Chambers, 735 Cranberry Lake Road, Valemount, BC, is being convened pursuant to the terms of the Local Government Act prior to consideration of one item. Number one being a temporary use permit 2301, a renewal of a temporary use permit 2105 to permit a temporary residential structure at 1070 14th Ave. At a public hearing, any person present who believes they are affected by a matter being considered shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matter contained in the proposal. Members of the public speaking to the proposal should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to this council by stating your name and simply your area of residence. We do not need your address. At which time you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposal. Anyone who deems their interests are affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. All who submit comments at this public hearing will restrict their remarks to the matters contained in the proposal, and it is my responsibility as chairperson of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. At the conclusion of a public hearing, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representation made at the hearing. And for temporary use permit 2301, we do have a presentation by staff. We have our planner, Ms. Krista Eddy, under 4.1. Floor is yours.
Good evening. So tonight's public hearing is in regards to one item, temporary use permit 2301, requesting to permit one RV to be used as a residence for a period of 3 years. The application proposes to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked on the property at 1070 14th Avenue. Excuse me. The property is legally described as Parcel A, Plan PGP 26762, District Lot 7355, Land District 05, being a consolidation of lots 8 and 9, CCA 4751352. Temporary use permit 2301 is the renewal of temporary use permit 2105 that was approved for a period of 1 year. The original unit approved with temporary use permit 2105 still remains on the property, and there have been no complaints or concerns from neighboring properties or staff in the time that the RV has been in place. The application satisfies all requirements outlined in Temporary Residential Structure Policy 83, including water, sewer, and power servicing, as well as garbage disposal and structure location. The RV has been approved by the building inspector to have the CSA Z240 certification. At the regular council meeting of February 14th, council gave initial approval of the proposed temporary use permit. Since then, adjacent property owners have been notified of and affected residents have been invited to provide feedback via written submissions or at tonight's public hearing.
And under 4.2, Ms. Eddy, have there been any written submissions received?
As of noon today, we received no written submissions.
Thank you. Is the proponent present to present? Are there any verbal presentations from the public? Are there any questions from council to staff or the proponent? And now adjourn this public hearing. Moving on to the regular meeting of Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. I now call this meeting to order. Under 2.1, we do need to adopt this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor MacLean, second by Councillor Mulyk. Are there any additions, deletions, amendments? All in favor? It's carried. Under 3.1, need a mover to adopt the minutes of the previous regular council meeting being February 28th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Pearson. Are there any errors or omissions arising? Hearing none, all in favor? It's carried. Under 4.1, we do have a delegation this evening from the Valemount RCMP to provide an update on services. With us tonight is Sergeant Robert Dean and Corporal Devin Reed. Please, whomever is presenting to join us at the podium, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I just wanted to give Mayor and Council an update on staffing levels within Valemount. We are currently fully staffed. We have one member who is still on graduated return to work status. I'm not sure, I brought Corporal Devin Reed along. He's been here for over a year, but because of COVID restriction, I didn't know if anyone knew him. There's three of us that look quite similar now, bald hair, beards. So I'm Bob, that's Devin, and the other guy is Nick. But moving forward with this, we have had a very productive year in regards to initiatives that we have done within the community. The two most notable ones would have been Project Windstorm, which occurred in Valemount on September 19th to the 22nd. And then the second project of Hailstorm, which occurred on January 14th to the 17th. These are initiatives set forth by the Traffic Support Unit. They used to be called the Roving Traffic Unit. They use drug interdiction dogs, and they bring along other variable members that have expertise in detecting drugs use, impaired driving, and drug interdiction work. I couldn't locate the stats for Project Windstorm in September, but I do have the Hailstorm stats, which are fairly impressive. They've only had 4 members in town, and 2 were being mentored by their unit. And I was surprised to see that they actually made some substantial seizures. No drugs this time, but they did unstamped tobacco, which was surprising to me. They issued 90 violation tickets, 84 warnings, defective vehicles, violation tickets of 10, warnings of 37, insurance 3, warnings 3, driver's license offenses 4, and they actually, with the cannabis regulations, they issued 10 violation tickets for contravention of the new Cannabis Act. It doesn't give me specifics of what they were for. It's just that they gave me these. They had 4 dog deployments to search vehicles, but no drug seizures. Off the top of my head, in September, I know they were quite productive. They had recovered a firearm and recovered, was it 3 cars had some drugs located in it. So
cash too, like substantial amounts of cash.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah. So they're planning on coming back. I've invited them back to come to our community, and they love it here. They find a lot of opportunities to do good work.
Made the arrest, or those that made the offense? Where did that invite come from?
I'll leave that to your imagination. Other significant work that we've been doing. So just so you get an idea that when a member transfers out of Valemount, it takes a significant time to find a person who's interested in coming to fill that position. So for a while there, we were short 2 members from September to pretty much November, early part of December. So we ran 2 months short of 2 members there. So there's only 3 rotable members because the one member was still on light duties or returning to work. But I've pulled a couple stats just so you know that we're not just sitting there at Tim Hortons having coffee and donuts. Through our year is like a fiscal year from April to April. So these are the numbers from April 2022 to today. So over the year, we've had 13 total administrative driving prohibitions, which means if we pull over a vehicle, they either blow on our instrument and it's either a fail, refusal, or a 3-day warning. And 7 of them were a fail. So that means that they get their car impounded for 30 days and they lose their license for 90 days automatically. We had 2 refusals, same punishment. They refused to provide a breath sample. They lose their car for 30 days and they're prohibited from driving for 90 days. Then they have to go through all the rigmarole of getting back their license from ICBC. We had 3 drug 24-hour suspensions and 2 liquor-related 24-hour suspensions. Most of these are related to the traffic enforcement we do. As most of you are aware, Valemount has a unique distinction of being a hybrid detachment. We're both traffic and general duty. So in laws for service, frontline policing service, which is general duty, such as assaults, break-and enters, theft, frauds, whatever, our members go out onto the highway and do patrols for speed enforcement and stuff like that. Last year, we issued 1,772 notice and orders and or violation tickets to motorists along the highway. We did 13 vehicle impoundment for excessive speed. That's any vehicle observed doing over 140 kilometers an hour. And there should have been a lot more too, but because of road conditions and stuff like that, and people know it nowadays, they just keep on running and we can't catch up to them, right? So we don't even pursue those ones, but no one can outrun the radio, so we try and get Jasper to intercede or Clearwater, but by then it's hard to know if that's the car we're looking for or not. And collisions were surprisingly down from last year because maybe of the milder winter we've had, but we still had 55 collisions, 28 of them were with injury, and that's over $10,000. We investigated 109 collisions under 10,000, and there were 3 fatals on the highway, unfortunately, this fiscal term. And I'm not sure if you wanted to know, but I had our public servant run some numbers just so you get aware of where we're running into a file count. So our busiest year was actually 2021, where we had 1,527 files. And then last year, in 2022, we had 1,127 files. And we have a counter which shows where they, in regards to involvement with Trans Mountain workers. And there's roughly 20% of those files are associated right back to Trans Mountain employees being in our community, where if they weren't here, we wouldn't have to be dealing with them, which would lower the number of our involvement in there. That's a rough estimate of what we go, because we haven't captured all of them, because sometimes we don't catch them. We don't know if they're Trans Mountain workers, if there's a fight or an argument or something like that. Yeah. So, but that's what we ran at, and that's what we're looking at. Other than that, that's pretty much last year in a nutshell, unless you have any other questions that myself or Corporal Reed could answer for you.
Well, thank you very much, Sergeant. Motion to receive the delegation, moved by Councillor Mulyk, second by Councillor Pearson. Questions for the 2 presiding members? Any questions, comments?
So overall, we're doing not too bad as a community. We're all keeping clean and doing our best to work side by side with you, and so to speak.
No, we have no problems with the community at all. We get along well with members of the community, and I mean, we have had our experience with Leadcore, but Leadcore has been supreme to us. Like if we have a problem with one of their members, their workers, we talk to them and they're gone the next day, or that day they're gone because they're breaching their code of conduct. And I think the top of my head, since they've been here and direct dealings with us, there's probably been about 25 to 28 that I know of specifically that have been let go. And the head security officer for Leadcore in our area is a retired superintendent from the RCMP, and he deals with a lot of it in-house that doesn't even come to us, that are let go without us or any involvement with us at all. So we appreciate all the work he's done for us, keeping it out of our wheelhouse. So.
And I asked you when we were off camera, but the membership is doing good. Everybody's
Everybody loves it here. Yeah,
okay. Everybody's got housing.
Yeah, we all have housing. Yeah, just so council's aware that we all have forced housing. There's 6 members here, including myself. So there's myself as a detachment commander, Corporal Reed is the ops NCO, and then we have 4 members. And each of us has our own residence here that the force owns, and we rent it off of them. Just ease of transition, moving back and forth.
Good. Well, thank you. And if we can ever do anything to support you in any way.
And we did bring 4 little babies into town with our most current member, but they're small.
All right, so there's a knocking on the door of the daycare. Other questions for council? Comments? Yeah, Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, a couple comments and only because, I mean, we kind of tend to be the first stop with the public. So you talk a lot about your highway stats and stuff. We get a lot of complaints about the speed in the community. I know we see it, a little bit of enforcement on 5th, which, you know, is kind of the low-hanging fruit of Valemount for speed. But, you know, I think the biggest thing is, the one thing we hear is not a lot of visibility. They don't you see out in the community. You know, what you're doing on the highway is great. I mean, we need it. You know, the enforcement out there is so critical right now. But just that local presence, especially with a large number of out-of-province pickups around town, that's one of the biggest things we hear. So I'll just throw that out there.
No, that's fair. These stats that I presented don't reflect just, they have already amalgamated any that we deal inside the city too. So I didn't separate them. That's just total number. So
From recollection, I think all of the impaired driving ones stats declared were all within the village limits.
yeah,
None of them were on the highway.
yeah.
Wow.
They were all within town.
Or within, you know, not like outlying. They're,
Yeah.
you know, from MacLean to Cedarside in that area. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll take that into consideration and we'll look. I mean, I know when we do get complaints, I know the one lady on Dogwood complains about speeders through the playground zone, and we try and sit there, but
Yeah.
I mean, we sit there for an hour and you get 3 cars going by. It's like,
Well, every truck
means-
has a radio in it. Right?
yeah, that's right. They know where we are, right? Yeah. So,
With some of the challenge, did you have any follow-up? Some of the challenges of, you know, having a limited tenure here, 3 to 4 years for the members, they're on the move before that seat is filled. Are there any other hybrid models in the province that are having similar hiring difficulties where you're sharing general duty and traffic enforcement?
there's only one other detachment. It's Stewart. It runs the same model as we are.
Yeah.
But just so you're aware, I don't have the specifics of it, but I think we're quite lucky to have full complement because some of the detachments in the province are running quite scarce. And they're saying like some are running 80%. So
The detachment I came from before I came here was supposed to have 18 constables, 3 corporals and a sergeant. And we ran for almost 3 years with 2 corporals and 7 constables. So 40% manpower.
Yeah. And what's the feedback from your recruiters and the up-and-comers, and are you folks being replaced in 10, 15, 20 years?
I don't have the recruiting numbers. I know some numbers from Depenau because my son just went through 3 years ago. And, they're having trouble filling classes in Regina and telling us to expect less people to come from what we call the farm. Because they're just having less people go through training right now.
Well, get the word out.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah, you bet.
Just wondering the reasoning for the combined unit, the model that we're working, I mean, versus having separate traffic. I mean, is this a better in a rural community?
I think it's a better model for this area, but from my understanding, this was about 11, maybe 12 years ago, that way before my time here, was that Highway Patrol and General Duty, as they were called at that time, didn't get along. In the sense of not fighting, but if we had a Highway Patrol member working and a General Duty member working at night, and the Highway Patrol member asked for assistance for an accident scene, the General Duty member wouldn't leave to go and assist him. And then, of course, they do it back when GD has a call for domestic or something, and there's usually 2 members, or 2 members go. Highway Patrol says, I'm not your backup, I'm Highway Patrol only. So it was one of those kind of things that they couldn't settle at the powers that be, from my understanding. So they looked at it in North District and said, if you can't play along together, we're going to look at this model. And we're still in the looking at how well it works. But in my opinion, I've been here for 6 years, luckily enough, or close to 6 years, and it works. It's a good model, especially for this type of community that we run. I mean, and the feedback from council and members would help it better, right? I mean, so right now, as far as I'm looking at it, it works. Because instead of having somebody, if you get someone in Highway Patrol that's not very productive, they can just sit and do nothing. And then if their supervisor's off, I have no say in it, because it's weird. Highway Patrol is its own entity to the RCMP, even though we wear the same uniform. Wow. Like BC Highway Patrol, now they've called themselves, instead of E-Division Traffic Services, they've gone back to the BC Highway Patrol, and GD has no say over them, and traffic has no say over GD, right? No. So wow. We work in the best of both worlds, where technically, if you look at our org chart, our organizational chart, I'm the only traffic member here. The rest are general duty. It's just to keep everyone happy in regards to manpower and resourcing and all this other stuff, so.
Awesome. Nice little 12-year pilot project.
Yeah, it's still going.
In its infancy.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions, comments? Well, again, Sergeant Dean, Corporal Reed, thank you very much for taking the time to visit with us this evening, and we look forward to our next engagement.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Questions on the delegation itself? Comments? All in favor of receiving the delegation? It's carried. And my agenda is reloading, which is fine.
Yeah, we've lost the internet, so it's not in the building here at all.
All right. Well, I got my agenda back, so it's all good on my front. Did you need a pause at all?
I've tried everything I can do. I can't get it back, so we'll just record and.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you familiar with the restarting process?
I've lost it on my phone as well.
Oh, okay, so it might be a broader issue than the building. Understood. Okay.
Nope, looks like I'm back.
Here we are. Well, we'll just continue on as if nothing happened, and because everything's hunky-dory, and
There were meetings before internet.
yeah, there was meetings way before internet. So under 6.1, correspondence for action, well, actually, under correspondence for action, we do have a couple of things to consider. 6.1, requests by Firm Foundations and their 2023 Yellow Duck Pluck. And they're looking for council to grant permission to Firm Foundations Christian Outreach to use the Valemount Secondary School property at 201 Ash Street for the 2023 Yellow Duck Pluck raffle on May 21st, 2023. Moved by Councillor MacLean, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Are there any discussion? I'm glad they're well ahead of the date in seeking that space. And it's going to a great cause. All in favor? It's carried. 6.2, request from Northern Health Connections Advisory Committee and the Northern Health Authority with a recommendation that I be appointed to the Northern Health Connections Advisory Committee. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion? I think they're reaching out to all the sub-regions of the Northern Health Authority. So hopefully we can get some of our verbal concerns into that room and provide some feedback directly. All in favor? It's carried. Quite a reading file this time around. Is there anything folks would like to surface? Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, a couple of things just to comment on. Number 3, news release from the SIMP on the old growth management. A great document, and looking forward to a positive working relationship with our community forest going forward with under that. And number 4, Rogers improving wireless service. Looking forward to having some competition in town and see what that does for us. So,
Yeah, they did reach out to the regional district. Agenda is not published, but I'm sure if it's not in this month's agenda for location and community consultation through that local government, I'm sure it'll be in April. Anything further, Councillor Pearson?
No, that was all.
Anyone else? Yeah. Q. Administrative reports. 8.1, Valemount Bear Cubs Soccer, looking for a municipal donation request in the amount of $284 to their organization to cover the cost for insurance and rental of the Valemount Secondary School field. Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor MacLean. Any discussion? Seems that the initial thoughts around the financial obligations or the wherewithal to fill that form, it seems to be fairly easy. Good. All in favor? It's carried. 8.2, letter of support for SIMP application to Community Opportunities Readiness Program, or CORP. Looking for a couple of resolutions here, Council. First one, to approve a letter of support be granted to SIMP First Nation in pursuit of the CORP administered by the federal government under Stream 1 to support, for support to pursue economic opportunities related to the Valemount Airport expansion project. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Discussion? All in favor? It's carried. And number 2, that council confirm that the village will match SIMP's contribution of 10% of the contract value in accordance to the requirements of CORP. Moved by Councillor MacLean, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Any discussion on that? Follow-up from administration?
Your worship's council, I'd like to highlight, it's in the body of the message, but the 10% of the contract value we understand to be $9,000, just to highlight that here for the public forum, for those at home. So that would be $9,000, 10% for ourselves, 10% for SIMP, matching with the up to 80% of the funding that we're seeking here.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
That was my question, but thank you.
There we are. All in favor? It's carried. And then stemming from a public hearing earlier under 8.3 to consider a temporary use permit 2301, a renewal of TUP 2105 for 1070 14th Ave, legally described as parcel A, being a consolidation of lots 8 and 9 CA 4751352, District Lot 7355, District Caribou District Plan 26762, proposing the renewal of the temporary use permit for a period of 3 years, seeking approval. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Under bylaws and policies, 9.1, information access and privacy protection policy number 90, and that it be approved by council. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Discussion. Tracking privacy now. Now and to the future. All in favor? It's carried. 9.2, encroachment onto village-owned land, policy number 91, 2023, that it be approved by council. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Pearson. Discussion. Councillor Pearson.
So in reading this will apply to all the current encroachments. Those landowners will be approached to come into an agreement. Since we learned last year or the year before that much of the frontage along Caris is somewhat misrepresented. So just confirming.
To the councilor's question, I believe there's a number of arrangements that have been made over the years in Valemount that we would like to modernize and bring under this policy. I'm not aware in that instance on the Caris Drive if those are part of those past agreements that we are aware of, or if that's something that is yet to be addressed, but we would be looking to speak to anybody that has an outstanding encroachment issue or any more that we become aware of that are historical, and try to work out an agreement in compliance with the latest policy. And then we would use this also going forward for all those that we see from this point forward. It's recognized in the policy that from time to time there may be encroachments that are beneficial or that we want for one reason or another. They may not inherently be negative. So this just gives us a way of cataloging and doing the record keeping on those, to your point, backwards as well as forward.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Didn't recognize any new business. Is there a notice of motion any folks would like to bring forward? Councillor Pearson.
Yeah. So I'd just like to give notice that I will be bringing a motion forward next meeting, asking that we look at a working group be established to discuss possible solutions to the issues surrounding Caris Drive traffic situations and parking.
Seconded by Councillor Mulyk. That in support of Councillor Pearson's motion, notice of motion to be brought forward around the issues surrounding traffic on Caris Drive. Discussion on the notice of motion. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. We do have time this evening for public comment. Are there any public comments this evening?
Councillor reports, I believe.
Item 12.
Oh, I didn't want to do council reports tonight because I can't find mine. Let's go back to 12 council reports. And while you,
So you did stuff.
we'll start at right at the front. Yeah.
March 2nd, we had our personal health record meeting, and we also had a budget review just with staff, just to sort of know what money we have and where it's going to go, hopefully. On the 5th, we had the CBT grant presentations at the high school, and they were really good applications. It was a good afternoon. Staff did very well. It seemed to run smoothly, so thank you for all those there, and for all of the applicants and the CBT committee. Good work. And on the 13th, we had another budget overview to put everything into place, to have a look at everything. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mulyk.
On March 5th, I attended the CBT Ready Grant presentations at the high school as well. It was a very good afternoon. I was very impressed with the displays. I was most impressed with the enthusiasm of some of the proponents and the knowledge. You know, that was a very, very worthwhile afternoon, that's for sure. And on the 13th of March, I also attended the budget meeting here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pearson.
March 2nd, I also joined in the personal health record meeting via Zoom, discussing the My Health Key program and how we move forward with that. That was followed with council and staff for a kind of a strat plan budget discussion. March 5th, I also attended the CBT grant presentations. And yes, there were some very good presentations put forward. So March 6th, community forest meeting. March 8th, kind of a preliminary talk with a teacher, Peter Tkach from the Valemount Secondary School, looking to put forward a plan for a youth council within the high school. March 9th, a rather early meeting with government officials at not 700 at the community forest, and that was with the ADM of Ministry of Forest, Mr. Eamon McDonough, and Prince George Forest Area Rep Mr. Sean Rice for discussions on community forest. Did a little tour of Cedar Valley Holdings Mill, and then they carried on with the rest of the industrial park tour. It was a great discussion. Having an ADM from the Ministry of Forestry that has a background in the valley, having lived here for several years, he knows the ins and outs, and it was a really good discussion. That afternoon, I had the pleasure of visiting the Valemount Elementary School, the grade 2 and 3 class, to discuss my work as a counselor, and they sat down with a bunch of questions and quizzed me, and yeah, it was a great day, a great afternoon. They had talked local government. They had built Snowball City. Everybody took part in the building of the city. They did some discussion on budgets, and at the end of the day, they had a surplus. So I'm hoping that they come and sit in these chairs in the future, because the future is very bright with that group. So Friday, March 10th, Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association board meeting via Zoom. And then on the 13th, the Southeast BC Regional Connectivity Committee meeting via Zoom. And I was unable to attend the budget meeting here, so that's it for me.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor MacLean.
That's a hard act to follow. I too attended on March 2nd the budget strategic plan review. And on the 5th, I too attended the CBT Ready Grant presentations. It was well done. There was so many worthwhile, they were all very worthwhile projects, and it was enjoyable. One of the best I've attended, and I've attended a lot over the years. On the 6th, I had a Columbia Basin Treaty Local Government Committee meeting. And on the 13th, I attended the budget review meeting, and that was it for me.
Thank you. Any highlights from your LGC?
Yeah, the Linda Worley and Stan Dole have been once again the president or the chair and the vice chair by acclamation.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Congratulations to the entire group. We do have a Columbia Basin Management Plan revision coming at us over the next 5 or 6 weeks. So I did spend some time on March 2nd with Mr. Peters, getting out some advertising for that. Our session here in Valemount will be on April the 26th. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. We certainly cannot do it without the residents giving us some direction. And then we had the strategic priorities update with the staff-led session here. March 5th, I too took part in the Columbia Basin Trust Ready Grant public input session, echoing everyone's thoughts. Wow, some really cool things out there. March 7th, had a kickoff with Northern Health for the Northern Connections Advisory Bus Committee, or Bus Advisory Committee, pardon me. And then March 8th, I had a preliminary call with the auditors, our partners at KPMG, around finance checks and balances. March 9th, early morning start with Councillor Pearson with a briefing with ADM O'Donoghue and District Manager Sean Rice and reps from Valemount Comfor. Later, I had a reception here in the chambers with the elected officials of Snowball City, with the elementary school, Mrs. Lawless's class. And then I signed up for a couple of webinars through UNBC and the Community Development Institute. There's this series of 5, so the first couple were readiness and transition, so large employer leaves town, we've been through that back in 2009, so looking to other communities and their, the Houstons, the Mackenzies, even Prince George for that matter, losing larger employers, what supports are out there from, a provincial transition team to UNBC themselves, some really cool supports. And then finish the day off with the Robson Valley Region Steering Committee. March 13th, at a Southeast BC Regional Connectivity Committee along with Councillor Pearson, and then another UNBC CDI webinar. This time was in for transition response. Getting those folks, getting a skill set out there or a list of a skill set where, not resume building, but, one-on-one, talking with folks who have just recently lost or not quite close enough to retirement that they will lose their job and they've been doing it for 30 years. What other skills might they be able to transition into another form of the workplace or another location within the workplace that perhaps Valemount, McBride, Robson Valley can support. And then budget presentation, always enthralling, and I mean that, later on the 13th. And yeah, that's about it for me. Motion to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion around, we've already called the quarter. I do want to just bring up council up to speed before I ask for receipt. So there were 6 items that were generally discussed at the briefing with the ADM and the DM from Prince George. We talked around a brief history of milling and manufacturing here in the valley, and looking at some trends where we had so many smaller mills back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Then we went to these big, large super mills, or not even super mills. We went to centralized mills and then to these big super mills. And now we're moving back to those smaller, 26, 27 employees, and still seeing more with less annual allowable cut. We talked about tabular rates and how they differ from the appraised stumpage. So we've been able to do a lot of innovative things as a community forest under the tabular rates, such as commercial thinning, those kind of programming. But the response from the province is, with the softwood lumber agreement, there's still some issues south of the border with a perceived subsidized stumpage. So we're paying pennies with the tabular stumpage, but versus the appraised stumpage would be, look at any BCTS block paying a couple bucks versus 65, 68 per cubic meter. But there is no real appetite in Victoria to change COM4s from tabular to appraised, so really good news there. There is no question in Victoria's mind that there is an agreement and looking for a territorial stewardship plan from CIMP, which will be shared with partners from Barrier right through to McBride to see what that looks like here in the North Thompson and Robson Valleys. OGMA, so old growth management areas, will be open to forest health rationale. So if there's infestation of any form or damage from wildfire, that we can take action to make those old growth management areas better from a health standpoint, ecological standpoint, and we can provide rationale to the district manager. We're able to enter into those polygons and do what we can. And there was an agreement they are in agreement that obviously there is a valley-wide support and eventual alliance to having the old growth deferral and old growth strategy recommendations led and with our assistance with Cint Nation. And then finally, BCTS is finally coming back into the forestry game in terms of harvesting, which could lead to various partnerships throughout the valley for layout, and but still BCTS will be leading the auction format. So folks looking to bid on a block, BCTS will still lead that. Just wanted to bring you up to speed there. So now, motion to receive. Moved by Councillor Mulyk, seconded by Councillor Blanchette. Any further comments? All in favor? It's carried. And speaking of comments, we do have time for public comment. So if there's any folks in the PAC gallery this evening, we'll be looking for any public comments on the approved agenda. Not all at once. Moving on, I'd like to give notice to proceed in camera for consideration of 3 items per section 91K of the community charter to discuss matters related to K negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they're held in public. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. All in favor? It's carried.